Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode. This is a fun one. This is my May album review roundup where I talk about all of my favorite albums from the month of May 2026. I've been doing these shows monthly just to give you some selections of albums to listen to that I've been enjoying, and I've decided since the last episode to switch up the format a little bit and do it kind of as a countdown, basically counting down my top 10 favorite albums from the month, from 10 all the way up to 1. And I'll do some quick honorable mentions at the start. And this show is basically a way for me to give you guys a bunch of recommendations. I treat this pretty casually. I'm not doing any in-depth reviews. I'm just giving a basic synopsis of the album and my quick impressions about it and who I think might like the album. And then I'll move on to the next one. So it's a way in a reasonably short time to give you a bunch of album recommendations to go check out if you haven't heard them yet, and for you to get an idea of what music grabbed my attention this month. Many of you will probably know a lot of these albums. Some of them I've covered and done reviews of on the channel, so I wanted to give my quick list, hopefully introduce you guys to some cool new music, and I'll move over so I can put the album cover on the screen, and in the description I'll put a list of all of the albums that I talk about so that you can go search them in your platform of choice, your Prog vendor, your Bandcamp, your streaming service, whatever you will, to check out music. So let's get into some honorable mentions. Alright, so first I'll do the honorable mentions in release order. So this one came out on May 1st. This is the Claypool, Lennon, Delirium, and the album's called The Great Parrot-Ox and the Golden Egg of Empathy, kind of a wordy title. But this caught my attention. Maybe not full-blown progressive rock, but like psychedelic rock mixed with some funk rock, some experimental music. This is basically the collaboration between Les Claypool and Sean Lennon. And I found it really interesting and intriguing. There's some really cool pieces on here and some really interesting, catchy songs and cool experimentation and psychedelia and kind of delving back into like late 60s, early 70s, type of era of music. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought this was a cool release to talk about as one of the honorable mentions. Next, we've got Legacy Pilots with Camera Obscura, kind of two releases at once, Volume 1 and Volume 2. This came out on May 7th. This is symphonic prog. From his name is Frank Us, from Germany, and he brings together a whole host of notable prog musicians on these records. On this record itself, we have Todd Sucherman from Styx, Marco Meneman, Lars Slowak, finally George Petrovas, Steve Morse, John Mitchell, Jake Livgren. So you've got a bunch of kind of familiar figures in the world of modern prog. And I view this, there's cool little prog instrumental moments and stuff that pop up every now and again. But to me, this is more like AOR, 80s style rock, arena rock perhaps. Sometimes it's a little bit more laid back and groovy. And it seems like the idea was to split these up into two different sides to their sound, basically. Volume 1 is the more calmer and more beautiful moments, whereas Volume 2 ventures into the more darker, extravagant, and eccentric kind of side of this project. But it's all the brainchild of Frank Us, and it has some really cool stuff for fans of traditional prog rock, maybe sometimes on the softer side, sometimes leaning into that AOR kind of feel. But really well done, well executed, great musicianship, great guests on the record, and so it's worth checking out if you're interested. Also, released on May 8th, we've got Teramaze with The Silent Architect. This is an Australian band doing some pretty standard prog metal music here. It's just really well done, really polished sound. Just really classic and not too heavy or in your face. If you like just kind of your classic Dream Theater, Fate's Warning, that kind of prog metal. This has that sound in spades. The vocalist, Nathan Peachy, is just fabulous, really beautiful vocals, great guitar work from Dean Wells. And it just really works. They put out a lot of material. They put out basically an album a year, so they work at a fast pace, but it really always sounds great, always well polished, and if you love, progressive metal, there's nothing not to love here. So definitely one worth checking out in the honorable mentions list. Sticking a little bit to the heavier sound, we've got Karmanjakah with Diamond Morning. This has elements of gent and thal, progressive metal. But what I found interesting about this, even though there's a lot of like pretty heavy riffs and, darker tones and all that kind of stuff, it's balanced well with this gentle ambiance and this kind of beautiful brightness that you don't hear a lot in the like modern metal scene. So I found their blend really exciting, and I love hearing this kind of genty, like harsher sound, but without the harsh vocals. There's very clean vocals, very beautiful harmonies, and beautiful singing. But with this backdrop of kind of this, more heavy riffage and genty sound in the guitar work. But there's some beautiful laid back moments that really shine and bring this kind of beautiful soundscape to the table. So I was really impressed with this, and with more listens, maybe this could have snuck into my top 10, but really impressed with it and really recommend. I think this is interesting. Next, also released on that May 8th date that we're still working through, was Black Orchid Empire's Lore. I thought this was a really fun release. This is prog metal, but done in a more accessible way with a lot of catchy hooks and, almost a pop sensibility, a UK group. And I really enjoyed it. The tracks are fairly short. It's not your extremely proggy, like Haken type sound. It's more streamlined, more accessible, more in line with maybe just current alternative rock and metal music. But I couldn't help but enjoy it. It's really well executed, really well played, great vocals, and it's just extremely fun and catchy to listen to if you like that catchier side, pop-infused progressive metal, if you will. I think there's a lot to enjoy with this release. Released on May 15th, Bruce Soord's record, Ghosts in the Park. Bruce Soord is the main man behind the Pineapple Thief, and this is his solo record. And this one almost snuck into my top 10. It's a really beautiful, gorgeous record, but it's very acoustic guitars. It's very light and sparse. There's not a lot of heft to the arrangements here, and there's not meant to be. It's just meant to be the singer-songwriter kind of almost lyrical poem set to music. It's really beautifully done, and it showcases Bruce Soord's like artistic heart, and I think that's important for this kind of an artist. So nothing flashy, no big prog flourishes or anything like that. The last song, Ghosts in the Park, is a lengthier track, but it has a lot of space and takes a lot of time to develop. So this record kind of requires a bit of patience and to just be able to appreciate this kind of sparser songwriting compared to like the heavier moments of Pineapple Thief. So if you're into that and some of those lighter songs, I think this is a great pick. Check it out. Bruce Soord's Ghosts in the Park. Next, an interesting one. This is Psyclops with Bound to Burn, Melody of the Martyr. This is prog metal from the United States. This came out May 22nd. It's a very short album. It's like 30 minutes long or something like that. And I think it's meant to be accompanied by a graphic novel that accompanies this story. So it's a concept album, a darker kind of almost post-apocalyptic kind of feel. And there are some harsh vocals on this. There's a lot of comparisons to like Between the Buried and Me and Opeth and bands like that, Protest the Hero, who have harsher vocals as well. But I found a lot to enjoy. There's also some clean vocals. There's some cool like Haken-esque, instrumental moments that are quirky and do different things and take from different styles, and that's the kind of stuff that I really love. So, and I felt like the darker, heavier vocals kind of fit the theme of the record, this kind of darker, like apocalyptic tone, like I'm mentioning. So it didn't bother me all that much, but I know if you're opposed to like the more harsher vocals, this could be a bit of a tough pick for you. But I found a lot to enjoy for that, Haken-esque kind of prog metal stuff that I really enjoy. I think this kind of fits that bill really well, and it's kind of cool that it's a short package. You could listen to it really quickly. It's very repeatable, and it's an enjoyable record just to check out if you're wanting to check out something in the modern, like harsher prog metal scene. Another album that just barely missed my top 10 is Devin Townsend's The Moth, which came out May 29th. This one's pretty fresh, and I've been listening to it for a while. I'm admittedly not the biggest Devin Townsend fan. I kind of view him similarly to how I think about Frank Zappa, how it's just such an expansive, quirky, oddball catalog that it's a little bit inaccessible to me. It's hard to know where to jump in and what to get into. So I end up kind of avoiding it altogether in a lot of ways. But Devin Townsend specifically has a lot of material that delves more into the more harsher metal type scene. There's some like more growling vocals and stuff on his works. But I've enjoyed stuff in the past. I really liked Empath, which I thought was one of his best expressions of his wide creative brain. And I really liked Lightwork, which I thought was kind of a poppier, more accessible side to his sound, which wasn't really as well received by his hardcore fans, but it was interesting to me. The Moth is another one that's very interesting to me and could take some time for me to really get into. I'm not completely sold on it yet, honestly. I know a lot of my fellow colleagues are calling this like his masterpiece, and I could see the appeal. It's one of those albums that I respect more than really love. Like, I respect what he's doing, and I can tell it's of high quality. There's so many cool orchestral moments. It's basically this rock opera that really emphasizes orchestral instruments. Feels like a stage play come to life. I believe there was a live performance of this that was put together before. So it has that kind of feel. Honestly, those kind of operatic, kind of musical-esque stuff isn't really my complete wheelhouse. I wish there were more rock elements, but there are heavy moments as you might come to expect from him. So you get the whole gamut of his sound. It's just such a long record that it's hard to digest, and sometimes it just all kind of washes over me, and nothing really sticks with me in particular. But there's certain tracks, and I love the one he does with Anik on vocals is really fantastic, and I love his quality of his big operatic range and stuff is really impressive, and just the creativity involved. So I really respect this record. I almost slipped it into the top 10 just because of that respect I have for it, and I know objectively that it's just a really brilliant record. But for me personally, it just hasn't really connected as much as I'd hoped, so ends up just barely missing the list. And also, I have to mention, also released on May 29th, not in the Prog world necessarily, but I'm trying to expand these lists so it's not just Prog, but all, music that I like and listen to, is Paul McCartney's album, The Boys of Dungeon Lane, which I think is one of the strongest Paul McCartney albums in quite some time. And I really enjoyed listening to this record. Another one that almost slipped its way into my top 10, but just barely misses my list. But beautiful work, great pop hooks. Some of his greatest writing in quite some time, and I just really, this is kind of the perfect, cool summer album. I'm a huge Beatles fan, and particularly I love Paul McCartney and what he brought to it, and it's just really refreshing to hear someone who's, older and in the later stages of their career coming out with material that's really brilliant and that harkens back to, classic Paul McCartney and Wings material. I really enjoyed this album and definitely wanted to mention it. All right, moving into the top 10. Number 10 is the band Dimhav with Ondine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but this is progressive metal from Sweden. It leans into power metal, symphonic metal, that kind of feel. It's big, it's expansive. It has some orchestral kind of moments in how the keyboards are arranged and stuff, and it's very conceptual. It's like this kind of Nordic story set to music, and it's very epic with a very excellent clean singer who has these belting highs that are just really remarkable. It's really expertly produced. It sounds really good. So it reminds me of Symphony X and some of their material back in the late 90s, early 2000s. It is a little bit heavier than what I tend to listen to, but I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I don't mind heavier, more metallic music if it has those clean vocals that I can grab hold of and enjoy. And there's a lot of cool proggy moments, even though this maybe isn't necessarily a full-blown progressive record. There's a lot of proggy keyboards and cool instrumental sections, and they just really go all out in this record, and I really appreciated the ambition and the storytelling and the epicness. It just all worked for me in a really fantastic way, and it keeps getting better for me on repeat listens, so this one's a high recommendation. Could skirt its way up higher on the list, but for now I'm slotting it in at number 10. It's kind of, to me, what I hoped The Moth by Devin Townsend was, but this is a little bit more successful to me because it's a bit more metal and rock oriented. There's not as much of the operatic nature, and I just feel like it fits perfectly for what they're trying to do in this kind of progressive power metal aesthetic. So this one really worked for me and makes my list at number 10. At number 9, I have Dodgy, their album Hello Beautiful. This came out on May 1st. This is another really beautiful record that I've enjoyed. It's more in the power pop sort of vein. Dodgy were part of the mid-90s scene with bands like Oasis and Blur, kind of this Britpop, power pop movement that happened during that era. And it reminds me back to, like, you know, Jellyfish, which is a band I love, and all the way back to, like, ELO and the Beatles and all of that kind of music. Just really expertly crafted pop rock music that speaks to me and is really fun to listen to. And every track has something that grabs my attention. It seems like this is a band that... it's been quite a few years since their previous record, at least 10 years, it looks like, from the information I have here. But they haven't missed a step. They still sound like absolutely wonderful on this record, and I really enjoyed everything about it. It was just this is one of the sides of my music taste that I often like to explore, and there's a lot of cool bands kind of doing this sort of thing, and when I saw this kind of reach my attention, I just had to listen to it, and I love it. I think it's a great summer record, and it's going to be one I'm going to be listening to a lot in the next coming months. So I had to mention it. That's Hello Beautiful by Dodgy. This is a unique pick on the list. At number 8, it's Love Me Not and the album Strike Between the Teeth. And this is actually an EP. It's a very short record, under 30 minutes. And I almost thought not to put it on the list because it's an EP. Sometimes I try not to include EPs because I feel like they don't quite fit in with the full-length albums in the same way. But I love this one so much I thought it was worth putting in the list anyways. This is more modern, kind of alternative. I see people describe it as post-hardcore, prog rock from Australia, bands that it's compared to like Bent Knee and Mars Volta and things like that. I kind of thought about Plantoid, which I've talked about on the channel, maybe a little bit harsher, a little bit heavier, but they still have some of the same kind of jazzy and psych kind of influences and sounds, even though they have a bit of a harder aesthetic, but they also have a female front vocalist. And there's a lot of 70s infused type moments as well, especially in something like The Tower. There's like a really cool saxophone solo that brings this kind of jazz club aesthetic to the track that I really love. And there's some heavier moments. There's some quirky, cool stuff. There's some laid back, stripped back singer-songwriter type stuff. In a short run time with only 5 tracks, they really cover a lot of ground that I enjoy in the modern alternative prog rock landscape. So I had to mention them. I think it's just sounds really well done. It's really well polished, and hopefully they release like a full length at some point that has this kind of level of quality, because if they do, this could end up becoming one of my new favorite bands. I really liked this a lot. A great way to sound modern and fresh, but delving into some older influences to kind of round out their sound. And I think that's really well done here on this record. Very high quality, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. At number 7, I have Tom Penaguin with Tom Penaguin II. This is a fantastic French progressive rock artist and multi-instrumentalist. It's kind of a one-man band type project. This is the most like throwback old school prog that's on the list, kind of in that Canterbury scene, early 70s, late 60s kind of range. I really love this album. It's instrumental. It's really wonderful, composed, like longer progressive pieces. He had a self-titled record come out a couple years ago. And this is kind of the sequel to it, and that one's really great as well. That first one I believe is on streaming services, where the second one may not be, but you can check it out on his Bandcamp page. Just fantastic. I'm kind of moving away from these one-man band type projects where one person does all of the different instruments and records it. But when it's really expertly done and crafted and feels organic and natural, I still really love it. And that's how this feels. It feels like an actual band in the room performing these like back in the 70s with some vintage, prog type instruments. Some people liken him to a modern Mike Oldfield, perhaps. But a lot of references to Canterbury music. Hatfield in the North is a big checkpoint for his type of music. Egg, National Health, those types of bands. There's a jazzy element to it, great playing, and highly recommended for classic prog fans. I think this is kind of an easy one to check out and to enjoy because it's just a really cool throwback record that I really enjoyed listening to. At number 6, I have Albion with It Was in the Month of May. This came out May 27th. This is prog folk from the UK. I love this unabashedly. I really liked the previous record, Lake Songs of Ilbid from 2024. I'm sure I mentioned it on the channel at some point. But what I love about them is that they bring this kind of traditional folk aesthetic. It's almost like Celtic sounding, a very, very much this like English kind of sound. Has a little bit of elements of like a Jethro Tull, of course, because there's some great flute work from Joe Parrish James. And they do like traditional folk songs, but they also mix it in with their own creative, like longer pieces. And it's just a really joyful record. That's what I really love about it. It's just uplifting, joyful, fun. There's some great vocal harmonies that come together, and it's just a real great ride. I feel like their first record, Lake Songs, was a bit more, had a bit more metal leaning. I remember thinking it was similar to like an Arion, where I feel like this record isn't quite as metal leaning. It's more just rock oriented, with some like proggy influences, folk influences. So they took away some of the heaviness, but still really enjoyable record, still really fun to listen to, great vocals, great flute playing, and just a blast for fans of Jethro Tull, for fans of folk music. I think this is a no-brainer pick to listen to. It's really good. It Was in the Month of May by Albion at number 6. At number 5, I have Crownland's Apocalypse. This came out May 15th. I did a full-length review of this one on the channel, and I really enjoy it. It's, classic Russian-inspired heavy prog. The first half of the record is the shorter tracks, which bring kind of a classic rock aesthetic to their sound. And the final track, the second side of the record, so to speak, the title track, is the big prog epic that brings to mind Rush, like Cygnus era Rush, and as well as Gates of Delirium, yes. And it's a really fun blast of a record. If you want throwback, classic rock and prog music, they're doing it better than anyone. A duo from Canada. This is their first full length, I believe, on Inside Out. And I probably prefer their previous record, Fearless, just a slight bit more personally. But I like this record quite a bit too, especially the epic has really captured me. And so I really enjoy this. Heavily recommended for any fans of prog. It's structured like a classic prog album, and I appreciate that. And I just have a lot of fun with the band. They have this cool sound where they're able to bring and draw influences like from Rush, obviously, and Led Zeppelin. But they infuse their own style and sound to it and bring their own kind of world building into this. So I really respect this record and think it's kind of a must listen for any fans of classic prog. So check it out if you haven't yet. Next at number 4 is Elder's new album, Through Zero. This came out May 29th. Heavy prog from the United States here, formed in Boston, Massachusetts. 3-piece heavy psych band. They're a fantastic group that I really enjoy. Nicholas DeSalvo is kind of the main person here, guitar and vocals and synthesizer work. And this has a heavy feel to it, heavy psych music, but it's very accessible at the same token, and it's like delves into stoner rock and psychedelic music and, doom metal, that kind of stuff, but through a proggier lens. These are longer tracks that have a lot of room to breathe and stretch and grow. Sometimes I'm reminded of like even a band like Tool with how they're able to like have these expansive packages but always keep it musically interesting, even though they're repeating a lot of the same kind of riffs and movements. They bring some elements of like prog metal at times with their heavier aesthetic. I've heard some people say they bring kind of an influence of like a Yes into their equation as well. And it's just brilliant music, and it sounds really excellent. Like, it's just sonic ear candy, and hearing them play and morph and weave these different melodies is just a real joy to experience. So I couldn't recommend this harder enough. I probably should have done a review of this, the next one as well. I should have done its own review. But I decided to leave it for this episode. So check out Elder's record. It's fantastic. I've gotten into the band a little more recently with Innate Passage was their previous record from 2022, but I know they have several great records in their back catalog as well that I probably need to spend a little bit more time with. But this is a fantastic record that's getting a lot of acclaim for good reason, and I enjoy it. It's really fantastic. One of the best records for sure this year. Another record I haven't done a review of, but should have. This is Carcius and the album Black Soul Sickness. This is from May 8th. This is my number 3 pick on the list. Heavy prog metal, whatever you want to call it. Seems like this band actually started more of a jazz fusion kind of project, but they've definitely morphed into something that's not jazz fusion anymore. This is more in the prog metal vein, in my opinion, with some excellent vocals, a darker atmosphere, kind of melancholy at times, but they always are able to bring those kind of instrumental moments that make your ears perk up and you stand at attention. And it's really well balanced, great songcraft. They really develop these great melodies and these great moments. They don't do too many like crazy prog metal instrumental firework kind of moments like you would expect from a Dream Theater or even a Haken. They are a bit more subdued, but when they have those moments, they really shine. They're able to bring a lot of weight to their music and have some really incredible passages that I just really am fond of. I loved Awakening the Spirit is one of my favorite tracks of the year, and it has this really cool expanded instrumental section towards the end where keyboards are given a chance to shine, and I think it's just a brilliant moment on this record. It seems like this is actually the third part of a trilogy of records that they've been doing recently. So I'll have to check out those previous ones. I believe I have heard their previous record, but it's been a while. So, if you like prog metal, if you like stuff like, Porcupine Tree is a good reference point, perhaps. The heavier sides of Pineapple Thief, that could be a good reference point as well. But just really well done, really well crafted, and I've been really enjoying this record. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So check it out. Black Soul Sickness by Carcius. Really cool. Great vocalist. And just a really fun record, all things considered. My number 1 and 2 records are probably going to be no surprise if you've been following the channel this month. Both of them I did standalone reviews and was pretty effusive in my praise of these records. At number 2, I have the Lemon Twigs, Look For Your Mind, came out May 8th. Lemon Twigs, it's the D'Addario brothers. They do this throwback Beatles, Beach Boys, late 60s, early 70s type of sound, power pop, early rock and roll, that kind of thing. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I can't stop listening to this record. And, some people could argue, are they a little bit too derivative of their influences and that kind of thing? But that doesn't bother me. I feel like they bring in their own aesthetic and just write fantastic songs that are just fun and exciting to listen to. This is a great summer record. I loved their previous record, A Dream Is All We Know, and this is right on the same level with a similar kind of aesthetic to it. And there's just so many highlights throughout the record. I love 2 or 3. I love Gather Round. I love Fire and Gold. Just these really fun poppy tracks that have a lot of interesting moments and hooks to them. And it's just a cool trick that they're able to pull off, that they're able to be a modern band with a modern feel, but also be delving back into the past so heavily, into this kind of throwbacks type sound. I think it's really something to behold. It's really exciting and fun to listen to, and I can't wait to hear where they'll continue forward with this style. And they're becoming fast one of my favorite bands to follow and to get excited about their subsequent records. So check it out. Look For Your Mind, especially if you're a Beatles fanatic, Beach Boys fanatic. This is a no-brainer pick as well. It'll be much to your enjoyment, I would think. So there you go, number 2. But my clear number 1 pick for the month is Advent Horizon and their record Falling Together. This came out May 15th, heavy prog from the United States. And it starts with a big epic piece called In a Lone and Dreary World. I absolutely love this track and the meaning behind it, and I think the band is firing on all cylinders. I really love To Sell to Call Home, their previous record. That's how I was introduced to the band. And they're just expert players, but they don't do anything too flashy. They're focused more on songcraft. It's kind of heavy prog in the style of, like, you know, Steven Wilson, and, you know, has elements of Rush in their sound, I would say. Even a little bit of like a Neil Morse kind of vibe that I hear sometimes. But I love the vocals. They have several vocalists in the band. Riley McDonald is kind of the lead vocalist and guitarist and, you know, songwriter, and brings a lot to the table with this group. They performed some acoustic songs on the Prog Corner on a live stream, and I think it was the best thing that's ever happened on Prog Corner's channel. I think it was just excellent. They have the chops, they have the skills, they have the heart, and I hope they're the next big thing in modern prog music, because I just absolutely love it. And, you know, I'm a huge champion for this band. They're fast becoming one of my favorite bands in the current scene, and this record exemplifies just why that is. I think it's brilliantly done, sounds really great, expertly produced, and right in that pocket of like great melodic prog that's, you know, focuses on melody first, you know, great songs to hook you in, but then explores some expansive proggy territory to make it a little bit more interesting to listen to on repeated listens. And, you know, this is right in the sweet spot of my musical taste. So check it out. If you like the music that I recommend on the channel, this is definitely a high priority album to go look for. And hopefully you'll enjoy it the same way I have. All right, those are my picks for today. That's my list of favorite albums from the month of May. I'm sure there's many others that I didn't talk about that you love. Let me know in the comments all of the albums that I didn't mention that you were a big fan of in the month of May. There were several albums that I just decided to leave off the list. We're very close to getting like at least an honorable mention, but I decided, you know, I can't just have these shows be so long that no one ever wants to watch it. So I kind of cultivated it down to a specific list. So, but let me know. I would be very thrilled to know all the other albums that came out this month, or let me know your opinions on the albums I've talked about here. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you like these episodes, and I'll hopefully be back again for another one at the end of June. Sometimes through the summer months, releases get a little bit light. The calendar gets a little bit low. So I may group things. I think June probably has enough for its own month, but you know, July and August might be combined as a combo. We'll see how it works out. But if there's just not enough albums for me to really do a good enough show with, then I'll probably just pair it with the next month's albums as well. So we'll see how it goes. But there should be some really cool albums in the month of June. I think June will be a pretty solid month for music. And then we'll see where it goes from there. So thank you guys, and I'll hopefully catch you guys in a future episode. Bye, everybody. Enjoy the music.